Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your favorite apostle, Robert A. Enos, coming to you from beautiful Lancaster, California, right here in my office and studio at our church, Greater Works Christian Church, here in Lancaster. Hang on, I have something. All right, check this out. Can you see that real good? This is my one of my Uncle Sam hats. We were at what we call the Poppy Festival. Those of you who are not around this area, it's the Poppy Festival. It's like a fair, the city fair, only shorter, 3 days long. And we were part of the local Republican Party. We were manning a booth there, so I was dressed like Uncle Sam. You know what was funny about that? This cheap outfit that I got off of Amazon for just a little over $40 was such a hit. But immediately, as I was dressed in as Uncle Sam, dressed in that outfit, walking from the parking lot through close, not even getting through the gate yet, I already had the security guards yelling and laughing, of course. It was all fun and games. Oh no, hide your money, he's after our taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, it has gotten so bad out there with the taxes and such that somebody dressed like Uncle Sam, I know it's a joke, please don't misunderstand me, I know it's a joke, but they're getting yelled at. Oh no, he's after our taxes. And I wasn't after, I guess I could have taken their taxes, but why not? The government takes way more than what they should. But anyways, it just was kind of funny. So that was one of my hats. The reason I say one of them is because the outfit that I had came with a hat, and the hat was so big it just fell down over my head, covered my eyes and everything. So I had another one of those blow-up suits that had a hat in it, and I grabbed that one. I also ordered this one over here. It was a little bit, they all fit my head a little bit better than that original one. Not that anybody really cares about that, but we were having fun. Today I want to talk to you about something. I have a couple of articles and things to read, so we're going to do a little bit of reading, but there's beyond just that, there's a there's a purpose in all of this. There's some things going on which we're going to get to. I don't know if you've been hearing about what's going on with the what's it called? What is it called? SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center. Southern Poverty Law Center. Some really crazy things going on with the Southern Poverty Law Center, which we're going to get to in just a moment. But I wanted to start with this article because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to offer you more proof of what we've been trying to tell you, what we've been trying to say, what we've been trying to point out in this podcast and other places. The Democrat Party is the party of racism. I know. Let me put it this way, because a lot of people will disagree with it. No, because of, and they say this, they say that, they cite all of these reasons why the Democrat Party is not the party of racism. Okay? But all the reasons why we are told they're not racist come from Democrats. They come from the Democrats. They blame Trump, they blame conservatives, they blame the Republicans for being racists, and they say, but we're not racist. But that would be me like saying, okay, you guys can see what I look like, right? Those of you watching this on video, those of you just listening to it, you'll have to trust me on this one. I can come to you and say every day, all day long, I am the strongest man in the world. I am the strongest man. And look I have the most gorgeous flowing hair in the world. You can clearly see that it's wrong. But if I said that every day, now maybe not the hair part, but some people would begin to believe it. Now, I know that's absurd and I'm stretching it very far, but when you put it in, see, the Nazis, check this out. The Nazis had this propaganda tool. Tell the same lie over and over and over and over and over again. Immediately in the beginning, people know that it's a lie, but keep telling the lie. And then eventually people will start believing it. Why? Because they hear the lie so convincingly so many times. But it's the Nazis, okay, remember, the Nazis used this tactic to make the Nazis look like they weren't Nazis. They used this tactics against and for a lot of reasons, but primarily against the Jewish people. And now, what are we facing today? So much anti-Semitism, including in this country. Why? Because starting back in the 1930s, almost 100 years ago now, these Nazi propagandist hacks kept saying the same lie over and over and over. And in a nutshell, they didn't quite say it like this. Jews are bad. They ruin everything. We're Nazis. We are good. We're here to help. And in the beginning, people were like, no way. That isn't. They're Nazis. They're murderers. They have a bad ideology. Then after a while, people started buying it to the point to almost 100 years later since that had begun, we're still dealing with the backlash and that nonsense that's been in the world, because it's just sometimes lies can perpetuate and go from generation to generation to generation. And we're watching that with the Nazis and the American Nazis as well, and not just here in America, but around the world. Why? Where did it start? Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich and the Nazi Party. We've been saying a lot, when I say we, not just myself, but many, that the Democrats, the Democrat Party, are the true racists in this country. And people say, no, they're not, because, well, this Democrat told me they weren't. So a Democrat says, a racist Democrat says, oh, we're not racist. As a matter of fact, don't look at us, look at Trump. And they lie about Trump, and they lie about Trump. If they're going to lie about themselves not being racist or being racist, whatever, they're certainly going to lie about President Trump as well as other conservatives. I get lied about all the time. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you knew because I've been talking about it. I even laugh about it. I have been called, let's see, let me go through some of them. Homophobe. You know, phobe comes from phobia, fear of. I am not afraid of homosexuals, okay? I've been called a Islamophobe. Again, I am not afraid of Islam or Muslim people. I'm concerned about what it's doing to the world, but I am not afraid of them. I have been called a xenophobe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not exactly sure what a xenophobe. When I first heard that word, I thought it had something to do with the movie Aliens, because you know those aliens were called xenomorphs. So I'm like, why am I afraid of a character that doesn't exist? Anyway, so a xenophobe, not really sure what that is, but I've been called every phobe word out there. And I was even called at one point, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I was called a speciesist. Because I eat meat, so I'm a speciesist. I'm not 100% sure what that was, but I think the person was trying to put me down or correct me or whatever, and I just sat back, scratched my head, speciesist. So racist, you have a hatred for a particular race or all races beyond myself. That's what a racist is. Species is, so I guess I hate all other species, and that's couldn't be further from the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I love all these different species, especially if I have the cow species in the form of a steak, the fowl species in the form of fried chicken, the, what could I say? The aquatic species in the form of some fried fish. You know, I love these species. So that person was really off, way off. Of course, it was a vegan, you know, acting all crazy. And that vegan must be like a veggie cyst or a fruit cyst. That just sounded funny when it came out of my mouth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm having fun with it. But let me read this article. Now, this is an opinion piece. And let me tell you who wrote it first. This is an opinion piece that was published on October 28th, 2024. Okay, about a year and a half ago, give or take. And the person who wrote this and published this is Evan Barker. And she is a former Democrat Democratic campaign operative. And I love the way they use operative. You know, it's like cloak and dagger stuff. I'm an operative. I'm a Democratic operative. Yes. So Evan Barker, former Democratic campaign operative, campaign finance reform advocate, and podcaster. Okay, so that's who it is. And it doesn't say she stopped being a Democrat, by the way, in this article. Now, maybe she is, maybe she isn't. I'm just pointing that out just because it may lead somebody to believe, oh, so she left the Democrat Party. I don't know that she has. So anyways, let me read this. And this is what it says. The Democrat Party, this is the title. The Democrat Party is the most racist organization in America / opinion. So this is an opinion piece. All right. But it's an opinion piece based upon what she has seen and experienced as a campaign, a Democratic campaign operative in the Democrat Party. So it says this, and again, this was published October 2024. Last winter, I checked in with a friend in Democratic politics. Life is weird sometimes, she wrote back. I'm assuming she's texting. It doesn't say that just checked in. So this person writes back, life is weird sometimes, and told me she was staying at Alexander Soros's Hampton house. I made a joke about coming to visit her growing up in a Midwestern working class family. I'd always enjoyed getting a glimpse into the lives of the rich and powerful. Sorry, this person writes back, sorry, it's for people of color leaders only. She wrote back, it would be odd if you were there. Okay, so this Democrat campaign operative is not welcome at Alexander Soros's Hampton house for this gathering, whatever they're doing, because I guess she's not a leader of people of color, if I'm reading this correctly, but nonetheless. So this is a race-based group of Democrats working with Alexander Soros. Let me go on. As a former Democratic fundraiser, you would think I'd be numb to this kind of discrimination. But the truth continues to pain me. The Democratic Party, and she says this, once the champions of civil rights in response to real injustices, is now the primary driver of racial division in America today. Lee Atwater's Southern strategy pales in comparison to modern DNC's approach. No organization is more systematically racist. Now, the part that gets me sounding like I'm a little dyslexic is my mind keeps being drawn back to this. The Democratic Party wants the champions of civil rights in response to real injustices. Wrong. Never has been. If the Democrat Party has ever done anything, I'm not even going to say good, I'm just going to say done anything for other people, especially minorities, or as using what's in here and what I've been hearing a lot lately, people of color, brown and black people, it's only to get them locked into their system, to rely on the Democrats and to rely on a liberal, maybe government or liberal program. So they'll be theirs. See, racism is still alive, ladies and gentlemen. It's still alive. The Democrats are still the party of slavery. They've just changed it from chains. I'm just going to be honest with you. They've shifted from chains to now programs that get people locked in, and now they belong to that program, thus they belong to the Democrat Party. It's true. Let me go on. The Democrats' long-term strategy is to stoke racial resentment to build their coalition. Now remember, this is from a Democratic operative, campaign operative, not just a Democrat voter. This is somebody who works or has worked and maybe possibly still does for the Democrat Party as a Democratic campaign operative. Her own words. That's her own words. She's an operative for the Democrats. The Democrats' long-term strategy is to stoke racial resentment to build their coalition and energize non-white voters. The rhetoric is designed to convince minorities that America is irredeemable or irredeemably structurally racist, and only Democrats will look out for them. You see, tell a lie long enough, and people begin to believe it. even though all the proof is contrary. Okay? The Democrats, Democrat Party is not the party that ends racism. It is the party of racism. Oy. But they've been lying about it for so long that many people in our world, in our country, believe them. Social justice ideology, DEI, and wokeness are used in businesses, institutions, and schools to enforce democratic rule and used internally to enforce party discipline. Did you capture that? So, social justice ideology, DEI, and all this wokeness that they have forced into businesses, institutions, and schools. It's to enforce democratic rule and used internally to enforce party discipline. Do you see that? They're still the party of slavery. And through DEI, through social justice ideology, through their wokeness, and all this other programs and ideologies that the Democrats push, it's not to set people free, it's to put them in bondage to the Democrat Party, to the party, and to force people to line up with what they say is right, or it's not even what they claim. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about, can we use this to fool people into being controlled by us, giving their allegiance to us, always voting for us. This goes all the way back to the days of Rush Limbaugh. But even just recently, I heard and this is a black writer, conservative black writer, who wrote a book about being Frederick Douglass Republicans. Brilliant, by the way. And he was pointing out, don't stop calling yourselves a conservative. And Rush Limbaugh many years ago said the same thing. We've got to drop that term conservative, at least when we first start engaging in conversation and everything. Why? Because us conservatives have allowed the liberal Democrats to demonize that concept, that reality, that word, so that now it's a negative. Now it's an evil thing in many people's hearts and minds. This is why so many, not all, but so many. So the Democrats lie that we're the saviors of anybody that's got any kind of color in their skin or any kind of pigmentation in their skin. So we are your saviors. And then they say, and by the way, the conservatives are evil and wicked and they're racist and they want to see you all hanging at the end of the rope, even though they know it was the Democrat Party that founded the Ku Klux Klan that lynched blacks and lynched Republicans. But they want to conveniently make people, just forget their racist background and put it on the Republicans. They're always projecting, and they say these lies over and over and over and over again so that people start believing them. Well, I don't believe them. I don't trust the Democrat Party. The only Democrat out there that I know of that's worth his salt on any level is John Fetterman. And he's even leaving the Democrat Party because he understands and he knows. He finally came to his senses and said, you know what? My party left me. They're nuts. So, and here we got a Democrat operative writing that, hey, it's really the Democrat Party that are the racists. Let me go on. Just a little bit more. Where am I? Goes on to say, note how Democrats unite an entire coalition around Kamala Harris. No one wanted to look racist for suggesting there might be a better option. Ladies and gentlemen, you didn't have to look very far to find a better option. But because she was a woman of color, how dare we? How dare we go find somebody that actually can do the job? See, that's the essence of why so many people are against DEI. Because it's all about, it's about skin color. It's a racist. It's completely and totally racist in its core, in its foundation. The person that's qualified doesn't always get the job, but the person who has a darker tone, and maybe they're qualified. I don't really, you know what? When we talk of things like this, they start throwing out these, you're racist. because you don't want DEI, so that means you don't want black people getting the job. That couldn't be further from the truth. Do you know who I want getting the job? Especially the types of jobs where other people's health and welfare and life can be affected. The people I want getting the job are those who are qualified. Don't care the skin color. Don't care if they're male or female. And I said it that way because if I said gender, then somebody would say, oh, there are like 800 genders out there, so you don't care. I do care about the right person getting the job, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their race, and regardless of whether they're male or female. You know, it doesn't matter. I'll give you an example. This is what I mean. So it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. You hear a crash, bang, boom, somebody breaking into your house. You're a Democrat, so you're against guns. So you don't have a way to defend yourself, but you know that person crashing into your house could do you some harm, could kill you, do you some bodily harm. So you call 911. All right? Now, in that scenario, and you hope and pray that they get there before that person crashing into your house gets to your bedroom, gets to you. So you're hiding in the closet, you call 911, and you hope to pray that whatever officer comes to your house to protect you and to help you is a qualified officer. In that situation, it doesn't matter. You won't care. Is this a brown person, a black person, a white person? Are they Asian? Do they have, what background do they have? You're not sitting there going, hey, there's somebody crashing into my house, and I have a feeling that they're going to try to kill me. So send over a DEI candidate. Yeah, I don't care if they're really good. Just make sure it's not a white guy. Okay, don't send any white people. Nobody does that, ladies and gentlemen. And if you do, it's because you have some mental illnesses that you should go see a psychiatrist or something. Nobody does that. If my house is on fire and I call the fire department, I don't care what color of skin they are. Just come and put this fire out and save my family. Save me and my family. Somebody crashing through my door, and I call 911 and send out the police. Somebody's crashing through my door. I don't care what color they are. I don't care if it's a male or female. Just make sure they're more than qualified to protect me, save my family. Does that make sense? But when DEI is in the mix, we don't know if that person is even qualified. You know, regardless of who they are. And we've seen this. If you have a hard time still find some of the videos and find some of the commentary when they had the LA fires here not too long ago in the Palisades and such. Just look at who the fire captains or the chiefs, I guess the chiefs and such, who they were. You know, and I hate to say it like this, but a bunch of lesbian women, they were questioning one of these lesbian firefighters, chiefs, I believe, that says, you know, they were about carrying somebody, a man, a bigger guy down, you know, flight of steps or something, or dragging him out. And you know, her answer was, well, they should not have been in that situation, so good luck. Like, she didn't care that she couldn't carry them out. She didn't care that she couldn't get somebody out to safety. You know, anyways, it's just so crazy. And that's what DEI does. I am not against I'm not against anybody getting a job necessarily, as long as they're qualified for it. If they're not qualified, no, I don't want them to have a job. Okay, that particular job. Go get qualified. And we live in a world, ladies and gentlemen, back in the 80s. I know now I'm getting all riled up, but back in the 80s, I went out for the LAPD. And at that time, I don't know if it's like that now, but I went out for the LAPD, and what they were doing is you just don't go and you fill out the application initially, but then they offered free courses for anybody that wanted to get into that process. They would teach you how to do the interview, how to present yourself in an interview. They would teach you Everything that you need to know. Say this, don't say this, include this, don't include this, act like this, dress like this. Even that, I took all those courses and all those classes and I aced everything. That I got as a matter of fact, they told me you got the most points that anybody can get short of military service. They give a few extra points. I understand that. But they said if you were a minority or a woman, you'd get more points. I said, wait a minute. I'm doing excellent on everything so far that I can possibly get. Now, I'm being docked because of the color of my skin. So I was faced with racism. As a matter of fact, my oral interview was with two sergeants, one black sergeant, one white sergeant. And I don't hold this against the sergeants at all. I'm just going to tell you what they said because it was a policy for the LAPD at the time. So after the interview, they whisper in each other's ears and they write some things in their folders and they fold them up. And the black sergeant looks at me and says, "Sir, you have," and this is where he told me, "you have the most points you possibly can get." And I said, "Well, okay, what does that mean?" "Well, if you had military service, you can get a few more points." "Okay, I can't go to the military for 6 years, to get this particular job at this time. What else can I do?" They said, "Well, nothing. You could get more points if you were a minority or a woman, or a minority woman would get you even more points." I says, "So wait a minute. I'm getting docked because I'm a white male? How is that fair? When you just told me I have all these points and I'm doing excellent." They said, "You're doing excellent. You're one of the best candidates so far." And then they finished up with saying, "You're not going to get the job." I mean, they came straight out and told me. I said, you just told me I was doing really good on everything, that I have the most points I possibly can get, and I was doing an excellent. I was an excellent candidate. So what do you mean I'm not going to get the job? They said, "Well, right now, the LAPD, the county of Los Angeles, or the city of Los Angeles, LAPD is not looking for white men. They want minorities and they want women." So they were going to bump somebody with fewer points, less qualified, to the top of the list, well over me. And they came straight out and say, "You're not going to get it," even though they just admitted I was a great candidate. "You're not going to get this job because you're not a minority. You're too light and you're a male." So I faced discrimination and racism against my ethnicity, my skin color, and my sex, being a male. And I said it that way because, again, I don't like to use that word gender because people think that I might be one of 182,000 genders, and I don't play that game. Anyways, and what was this? These were all Democrat liberal policies that was just looking to, I don't know, it's an emotion-based thing. Look at us, we're good people because we put people in there. It doesn't matter whether they're qualified or not, it just matters their skin color. Now, again, I'm not saying, because this is where people get so one-track mind and they miss the point. "Oh, so you're saying black people aren't qualified?" That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But also in our discussion, this is also came up. They told me we're having a hard time filling these positions because qualified minority and qualified women don't want to be here. And in a way, I kind of understood in this sense because police departments, and a lot of racial tension was going around. So a lot of people didn't want to even work for them or be associated with it. So, but here I am. I'm willing to work, and I'm getting great points on this. Now, you're not going to get the job. We're going to give it to somebody who's less qualified, but they just look. They look better for us. It was all PR. It was all PR, ladies and gentlemen. Democrat, liberal PR that kept me from getting that job, and it kept many people, qualified people, from getting jobs. So now, in that area, LAPD, after that, somebody calls 911. Don't know what you're going to get. Why? Because of these DEI type of policies that are keeping the more qualified people out. Or, not all, Many of them, many really good qualified people can't get the job simply because of the color of their skin and their gender. And it's the same thing with the fire department. I don't know if it's still the same way, but it was that way back then. I was literally told, I said, well, maybe I'll go out and become a firefighter. I was literally told by high-ranking officials in the fire department, don't bother. You're not Hispanic. You won't get the job. I was told by them, and I'm like, what do you mean I'm not going to get the job? They're looking for Hispanics right now. So the fire department was looking primarily for Hispanics at that time, and I wasn't. I mean, look at me. I couldn't even pass for it. So there's a lot of discrimination and racism out there. And they used to call it reverse racism. It's just straight up racism. It doesn't matter which race it's aimed at, which race is doing it aimed at another race. It's still racism. Anyways, let me get back to this. So this article goes on to say, during the summer of 2020, I was a fundraiser for progressives and saw crazy things. Campaigns started replacing consultants and campaign staff with BIPOC, BIPOC staffers to appear more inclusive. I had to look that up. I didn't know what a BIPOC was. That stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So these consultants and campaign staff were getting canned so that Black, Indigenous, and People of Color were hired in their place. A more prominent Democratic group announced funding was reserved solely for organizations led by non-whites. Ladies and gentlemen, that's racism. You see, the Democrats make it do it so easily because it's in their DNA. It's who they are. They're racist. They don't care who they're racist against. And they're now using Black, Indigenous, and People of Color to further their own wicked ideology of racism. And using the very people that they're racist primarily against to push that. The candidate could then expose the racism as a white whisperer who could change their minds. The idea was insane and shut down by consultants who knew better, but still came disturbingly close to happening. They're racist. The Democrat Party are racist. At first, I went along with the Democratic crusade for racial division. I was scolded for using yellow emojis in Slack. Slack is an app. So this person was scolded for using yellow emojis in Slack in this particular program, which are complicit with white supremacy. So I switched them to white. When speaking to BIPOC consultants, I made sure to mention how white women are the worst. So they knew I wasn't racist. Do you see how it pushes you to say these phrases and have to talk in such a way in the hopes that people don't think you're racist? So speak against your own race. Speak against people in general. Oh, yeah, those white women, they're the worst. Hint, hint, hint. I'm not a racist. Well, you are. Because you're bringing race into every conversation to try to prove you're not racist, which makes you racist. Oy. While reviewing resumes for potential hires, I tracked their race to ensure all people of color received interviews and ignored most resumes from white men. See, there it is. There it is. It's Democrat policies. It's liberal policies. I faced it myself. But deep down, this all started feeling wrong to me. It started feeling blatantly racist, yet I was terrified to speak up. My personal breaking point came when a BIPOC colleague accused me of being an entitled white woman who needed DEI training after I disagreed with her over fundraising strategy. This was bizarre to me, being born with a genetic disease that put massive financial stress on my family. My parents never finished college and were married 11 times between them. I attended a dozen different schools growing up including an inner city school where I was in a small minority as a white person. We lived in apartments, houses, and sometimes a mobile home park. I paid for college with Pell Grants and loans that are still outstanding. Contrary to DEI ideology, not all white Americans have privilege. And that is true, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly didn't have any privilege when I was thinking about or working on being a police officer with the LAPD, and I certainly didn't have any white privilege when I thought about and was seeking out to become a firefighter in LA County. Both of those I was shot down. Why? Because I was a white male. So much for my privilege. This person knew nothing about my background and tarnished my reputation based on snap judgments about my skin color, which makes that person a racist. I tried to argue with other operatives that it hurts the progressive movement when people weaponize their identities and delegitimize stances of actual bigotry. They would agree privately but refuse to publicly support me. So all of you Democrats or left-leaners out there that know this kind of racism and bigotry is part of the Democrat Party and Democrat ideology, the liberal ideology, and you're not saying anything or leaving, shame on you. You're the problem. I've always said you can't fix what you refuse to face. And you're refusing to face it on any level. At least John Federer has the courage to face that wickedness in his own party and now says, enough's enough. I'm getting out. Unfortunately, many in the Democrat Party see nothing wrong with it. Oppression works as a currency, which can reap lucrative rewards, like giving a candidate an edge in a crowded primary race, assisting someone rise to become the leader of a powerful organization, or helping a consultant land a campaign media contract. Ultra-wealthy elite donors like the Soros family perpetuate this ideology because it presents zero challenges to their wealth. Americans uniting along multiracial class lines scare them more than anything. What does that mean? When whites and blacks and browns and Asians and anybody else, all the other different racial groups, can work together, come together without any kind of hate, the left, the Democrats, are so scared to death of that. And I say, let's give them something to be scared about. Let's lay down all these racial divisions and just come together and be Americans. All right? You know, as I just heard someone say just recently, there's only one race. It's the human race. And in America, there should only be one culture, the American culture. So one race, humans, one culture, American, regardless of what color our skin is, let's come together and just show all of these knuckleheads how wrong they are. And I refuse. I've been refusing for a long time, but I refuse to be part of such a wicked, racist organization called the Democrat Party. That's why I refuse to vote Democrat. I'm not fooled by it. I'm not buying into their lies. They're racist, and I don't want any part of that. I'm almost done with this article. This opinion piece. Democrats are suppressing their compulsion for division today by Harris, it's Kamala Harris, as Harris downplays her identity, running on colorblind messaging similar to Obama's. But people don't forget, they are now losing the working class in droves, including union rank and file. Kamala couldn't even earn a Teamsters endorsement. Now, of course, this was back in October of 24. So that's why it's talking about Kamala and the Teamsters and all that from back then. Clearly, racial division is no longer working as an electoral strategy. Fighting racism with more racism is deeply unpopular. And that's true. If Harris loses, prepare for a full-blown meltdown of epic proportions. And we've been seeing it for the last, year and a half now. They will see that the racist deplorables who again elected Trump, and they will refuse to acknowledge real changes in support because it contradicts their ideology. They will blame misogyny for the black and Latino men who switched sides. You will hear terms like white adjacent and internalized oppression trotted out to express why people of color voted for Trump. Democrats have done so much damage, this is a funny word to read, but I'll explain it. They infantilize black and brown people, treating them as victims with no agency. Infantilize means to treat someone as a child, too young, too silly, too helpless to make their own decisions. And you see this now, even, ladies and gentlemen, with the voter ID. You know, who doesn't want voter ID? Democrats. Why? It'll make it harder for them to cheat. That's just the truth. And what their excuse is, though? They're not going to say that. Well, it'll make it harder for us to cheat, so we don't want it. No, they say, well, that's going to cut out black and brown people from voting. So just by that virtue alone, ladies and gentlemen, by them saying that, what they're in essence saying is people of color, non-whites, are too dumb. As it says, like, I'll go back to this word, infantilize. They're too young, too silly, too helpless to go get an ID. Which, ladies and gentlemen, I've asked around since this first started coming up a few years ago. I've asked around many times. Does anybody even know anybody who's 18 years old or older that doesn't have an ID? One person said, well, my auntie doesn't have an ID, so she wouldn't be able to vote. And she said it so like, yeah. I said, okay. So I said, why doesn't your auntie have an ID? And she chuckled. She says, well, she's like in her 90s. I said, okay, but why doesn't she have an ID? Well, she has. So this is where I stopped her and I said, well, if she's too old to go, run to the DMV or something to get an ID, why don't you take her? And then she laughed again and she says, well, she has dementia. So her aunt in her 90s who has dementia doesn't have an ID. I don't even know what to say that. That was the only person in the last maybe 6 years, 7 years that tell me they actually know somebody older than 18, they're in that voting age, that doesn't have an ID, or in this sense, I'm not going to say can't get one, but just wouldn't. I hate to say it like this because it's not like the woman didn't matter, but in her 90s with dementia, doesn't have an ID. Do you really think it's a whole reason why the rest of the country needs to not have IDs to vote? Because one woman in her 90s with dementia, it breaks my heart because I don't want to think of anybody, especially our elderly, sickly like that. But let's face it, it's not a good excuse to not have voter ID in our country. And who's against the voter ID? The Democrats. And again, what are they saying? Because that will keep brown and black people from voting. So we can't have this. They're infantilizing brown and black people, treating them like children. In essence, saying they're too young, too silly, and too helpless to make their own decisions. I'm just telling you this. This is why the Democrat Party is really an enemy to the United States of America and should be an enemy to every American in this land, regardless of our skin color. Anyways, let me instructing whites to never correct a minority is textbook racism, implying they can't handle criticism. That's what they tell, and that's what they teach in such DEI and those types of things, that whites should never, ever correct a minority because that's racism. What? That's ridiculous. Anyways, unfortunately, individuals steeped in DEI will not change their minds lightly, and those who use it for social power will never change. The only way Democrats will learn is by losing elections repeatedly while hemorrhaging minority votes. Ladies and gentlemen, this, you know what? I don't know if this woman is still a Democrat. Maybe she left and came over to the right side of the force and left the dark side of the force. But she gets it. She gets it and she's seen it. So if she still is a Democrat, I would say shame on you. You see it and you're still there. Welcome to the Republican Party. There's another article that I want to read to you that goes kind of in alignment with this, and this is more recent. As a matter of fact, this article was published today. That's interesting. It was published today, and on Fox News, David Marcus, and the title is David Marcus. The law comes for Southern Poverty Law Center's ideological vigilantes. The alleged payments included partial funding of the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. And it's by David Marcus, again, Fox News, published today, April 23rd, 2026, and it was published at 2:24 p.m. Eastern Time, and right now it's 2:01, so this was pretty fresh. So this is not as long as the other one, but it really gets my goat. This is prove it. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Democrats, liberals, they're racists, okay, and they're liars. So the Southern Poverty Law Center is a nonprofit group in the South that's supposed to be, among other things, fighting racism, such as the Ku Klux Klan, Aryan Nations, people like that. If I say SPLC, that's Southern Poverty Law Center. It's used throughout this article, so please don't misunderstand, or what is that? Southern Poverty Law Center. That's what we're reading about. It says this week, the Department of Justice dropped a bombshell indictment alleging not just that the anti-racism organization Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, has been running a spy ring. Get that, ladies and gentlemen. This nonprofit has been running a spy ring, but that it has actually paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to the very white, or to the white supremacist groups. It says very white, but it sounds like they're very white. To the very white supremacist group it claims to be fighting. It truly could be a Dave Chappelle sketch. I don't know if you guys ever saw that Dave Chappelle sketch. I think Dave Chappelle, especially back in the old days, was hysterical, except for his swearing. I don't like it, but there was one sketch that I saw where he was like a leader, or a leader of a racist white supremacist group, and he was blind. But as you know, Dave Chappelle is black, and that was the whole funny sketch. So he's there as a blind, like say I don't know, a white supremacist leader and thinker of the group, and he's going on and on and on about, black people and all this, being really, really racist. But he's a black gentleman, and it was hysterical, But that's what this is. So it could truly be a Dave Chappelle sketch, right down to the fact that the SPLC funded in part the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, in which the lie that President Donald Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people. Okay. So the SPLC funded in part, maybe not the whole thing, but in part, the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that's where Donald Trump uses this word, very fine people. And they lied about it and says, see, Donald Trump is a racist because he said these other racists on the white side, the white supremacists, are very fine people. And they completely twisted it and lied about what he said. And it goes on to say Trump never called the white supremacists very fine people, but it turns out the SPLC was handing them bags of cash. Who? The white supremacists. So the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, was handing, as it says here, bags of cash to white supremacists. The biggest takeaway from this scandal is that actual racism is so scant in our society. And it's true, ladies and gentlemen. It's more a figment of many people's imaginations than in reality. I'm not saying this country has never been racist, and I'm not saying racism doesn't exist right now, but not on the level that many people want it to or think it does. The biggest takeaway from this scandal is the actual racism is so scant in our society that the SPLC has to fund it to find it. They have to fund it to find it. Okay. But even without the payouts, they have been little more than an ideological vigilante group for decades. Now, I'm not saying when the SPLC, when they started out, maybe they were really good and doing a great work and much needed. But right now, I'll use David Marcus's term for it. They're an ideological vigilante group. There may have been a time in the 70s when the SPLC did important work infiltrating and exposing racist organizations, but since at least the turn of the century, the group's main purpose has been to get conservatives canceled, even through dubious connections. So now what are they doing? They're basically just trying to cancel conservatives. The way this works is the SPLC keeps a watch list of individuals or organizations that they say are hateful. Mind you, no real definition of what is and is not a hate group is actually offered. It's just whatever they say it is, and it's almost always conservative. So if you're conservative, you're automatically a hate group. All right? We don't really know what a hate group is. We can't define a hate group, just like they can't define what a woman is. But we're pretty sure that conservatives are a hate group, so you're a hate group, so we're going to rat you out, point you out, and drag your reputation through the mud. Once a person or group finds themselves on this blacklist, if you will, the consequences have been grave. In some professions like academia or publishing, being labeled as hateful by the SPLC is a clear barrier to employment. So they're basically keeping people from getting decent jobs, and whoever they deem as a hate group or a hate person, they're going to ruin their lives, and they don't care. You know what this reminds me of, and I'll get back to this in just a moment, but this goes back a few years ago. There was an incident between a sheriff deputy here in my town, and an older white woman, and so there were some videos put out and everything, and so a lot of course, groups, including pastors, black pastors in my area, and they put me in this texting thread. They were going to go down there and do a news conference and show solidarity and demand that this officer be fired from his job, which he eventually was. Now, this is the very next day. So on one day, she gets arrested and the videos come out on social media and such. And now the very next day, with just one video clip that somebody was filming, showing the officer kind of grabbing the woman who tried to hit him, by the way, throw her on the ground and cuff her, and they thought that he was being too rough with her. Okay. Now, they were going to go down there and demand this officer be fired, demand all kinds of justice be done for this woman and everything like that, which I'm not against when there's truly something worth doing that. So I'm in this thread. And it comes up on my phone, and they're angry and they're upset. They're going to do this tomorrow at this time. And I said, wait a minute, brothers. Wait a minute. Because I know most of these guys. Wait a minute. Now, I'm the only white guy in that whole thread. Wait a minute. Before we go down there and ruin somebody's life, let's make sure that we're on the right side of this. Because all we have is a video from one angle, one short video from one angle, from the internet, from social media. Let's take a little bit of time to research this and wait until more comes out. Listen. If the guy was truly a racist and did this as an act of racism towards this black woman, I'd be like, hey, you do deserve to get fired. You do deserve to get fired. If some injustice was done, and so they started, oh my gosh, they turned on me. These were people I considered friends. I mean, when you see Trump right now, and he's called racist by the very people he used to be friends with before he ran for president, I understand that. I lived the same type of thing, maybe not on the same scale, but I lived it. A lot of my peers who don't share my skin color, but a lot of my peers here started calling me racist, calling me a bigot. People, I preached in their church and did work with them. I've had lunch with them. I've been in meetings with them. And now they turned on me, calling me a racist and a bigot because I just suggested that maybe we wait until we get all the information to make sure that we're not on the wrong side of it. I didn't want to go ruin some man's reputation and realize later that, hey, I was on the wrong side of it. So I suggested it. I was the racist and the bigot for merely suggesting that just maybe we shouldn't jump before we get all the information. And they started calling me all kinds of names. So this stuff is real, ladies and gentlemen. This stuff is real. And I'm not going to say all of them, but every one of them that started immediately calling me racist and everything, they're very left-leaning when it comes to political things. They buy into this nonsense. They actually buy into this nonsense. Anyways, it's more about feelings than it is intellect. Let me go on with this. Likewise, any organization, even one as harmless as Moms for Liberty. Now, Moms for Liberty is another group that gets a hate group designation, is always introduced or mentioned in the media with the grave warning, has been labeled a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So the Southern Poverty Law Center went after Moms for Liberty. And Moms for Liberty is basically a bunch of moms, literally mama bears, as they call them, who just want to stand up for their kids in these political matters. And so the SPLC came against them. And I've heard this before, ladies and gentlemen, with not only that group, but other groups, has been labeled a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, to which I say, I don't care. Right is right, regardless of who labels you a racist or a bigot. Right is always right. Keep going, Moms for Liberty. What makes this ideological vigilantism is that while the First Amendment protects Americans from the state punishing our free speech, the SPLC, through the myriad institution it has captured, metes out punishment for speech on a regular basis. For more than 25 years, this group has operated as a kind of private thought police, the rent-a-cops of American discourse, who ban conservatives from the conversation by smearing them, while progressives like Hassan Piker talk about killing the rich on podcasts. So SPLC, why aren't you after Hassan Piker? You guys got millions of dollars to throw around. So you would be included in Hassan Piker's desire to kill rich people. Anyways, so, and again, they're after primarily conservatives. Calling somebody a bigot, hateful, or a white supremacist is a social scarlet letter in our culture. Not for me it isn't anymore. Not for me it is. Not because when I'm just suggesting to hold back until we get all the information, and just merely for that, I'm called a racist and a bigot and all these other things, it doesn't even bother me anymore. Because people that throw those out for such stupid purposes and reasons, they have no class, number one. They have no intellect, number two. They don't even understand what a racist is because they are racists. They were coming after me for my race, even though all I said was, let's wait until we get all the information before we go ruin somebody's life based on one little video thing. Anyways, let me go on. Calling somebody a bigot, hateful, or white supremacist is a social scarlet letter in our culture. It doesn't just mean that the person shouldn't get a job or publish a book. It means they should be shunned in their personal and professional lives. Just because they say it. Not even because it's true or not. Just because they say it, the SPLC, if they call you a white supremacist or a bigot or a racist, everybody is supposed to just shun you from all of culture and society, fire you, throw you out of the house, and put you out on the streets. Why? Because they said it. Who's the bigots now? Who's the racist now? At its worst, the SPLC's defamation of everyday conservatives as racist may even contribute to violence. After all, the organization absurdly labeled Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA as hateful before a gunman silenced Charlie forever. Now, I'm not saying that that person who shot Charlie Kirk did it because of the SPLC. We will never know that. But that's the kind of rhetoric, as we hear, that kind of violent rhetoric leads to actual violence sometimes. Why? Because crazed lunatics are out there looking for their marching orders from people like this. You see, the SPLC's mission was once to protect those who were dehumanized in our society, but today they do the dehumanizing. Showing up on their watch list doesn't just put a black mark on one's resume, it puts a target on their back. So it sounds to me, I put this in my own notes, sounds to me like the SPLC has become the hate group. Certainly bigoted against conservatives. Whether the SPLC's shenanigans turn out to be criminal or not, the organization has been exposed as a fraud shop. The SPLC isn't cracking open cases against criminal organizations. It's just censoring ideas. Outside of prisons, there is no massive network of white supremacists that the SPLC needs to infiltrate and investigate. It's all stuff and nonsense. Now, again, he didn't say that racist and these white supremacists or racist groups don't exist. It's just they exist mostly in prisons. Okay? And in prisons, it's not just white supremacists, it's just these different, and they do this for a lot of reasons, but one of them is safety. Okay, it's just safety. You have to be part of a gang in a prison, from what I understand. So, anyways, and so outside of prison, I'm not saying, again, nobody's saying it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist on the level that the SPLC and people like them want it to, because their very existence depends on opposition. And if they can't find the opposition, they'll create it. So, the SPLC has been trading on its once excellent reputation for decades now. Experts pretend it is nonpartisan when, in fact, today it only exists to silence conservative voices, like calling Donald Trump a racist and lying about what he said. Sadly, the organization no longer deserves the trust that our institutions have put in it to be a fair arbiter of racism and bigotry. In fact, it may be responsible for more racism than it actually fights. It is time for SPLC and all of its malicious smears to take their place in the dustbin of history, and for Americans of goodwill to have free conversations without facing punishment from a fake civil rights organization. And honestly, it really does show just how far our nation has come in conquering bigotry. They have to pay racist groups. They have to pay racist groups to act like racists so they can fight the racism they created and paid for. That's what the SPLC, that's what they do. They pay racist group to do racist things so they can come against the racism that they paid for. I was familiar. Now, if you're not a Christian, you may not fully understand this, but in Christianity, we believe that there are demons and that sometimes a person can be oppressed or even possessed by a demon, and we, Christians, filled with the Holy Spirit of God, have the authority to cast those demons out of people, okay? That's very well documented in the Bible. It's very well documented. So, okay, here's what happens. So the ministries that focus primarily on casting out demons is called deliverance ministry. You're being delivered from a demon. Okay, so a lot of them, I'm going to put some of them. I'm not going to say a lot of them or all of them, but some have got to the place to where they're finding demons where demons are not. Convincing people that there are demons, whether in them or around them or in their home or in their family, when there isn't. Why? Because by doing so, they basically generate work for themselves, a reason to exist. It sounds to me like the SPLC has done the same thing. We need a reason to exist. We exist to fight racism. We can't find racism, let's create it. So, and if you think this is, no, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't fund the very groups that they're supposedly fighting against. So I looked on Perplexity. Now, Perplexity is sort of like a type of a Google, it's for information. It's an AI thing, but just for information. So I asked Perplexity, how much money did the SPLC give to racist groups? This is not an opinion piece. This is just fact. from Perplexity. It says the DOJ allegations say the SPLC paid about $3 million to individuals linked to hate groups between 2014 and 2023, including informants inside or connected to groups such as the KKK and other extremist organizations. A few reports add that one individual allegedly received over $270,000 over 8 years, while the broader total cited in the incident is more than that. So they're paying hate groups, the Ku Klux Klan and these other white supremacist groups, to do white supremacist stuff so that they can go fight white supremacy. I mean, I know it happens out there, but that's like, that would be like a mechanic. Okay, a mechanic going out at night and putting, digging up potholes in the road on purpose so people hit the potholes, their cars break down, and they have to go to the mechanic. Yeah, I mean, it's like that. It would be like the deliverance minister who maybe genuinely started out, but now his reputation is on the line in this sense because, it's just, I casted out so many demons, there's no demons around. So I'm going to have to convince people that they have demons so I can, in a false and fake way, cast them out and still look relevant. I used to joke about this. I said I'm a rhinoceros exterminator. I exterminate rhinoceroses. And I said that to my wife one time, and she looked at me, she goes, there's no rhinoceroses around here. I can't even say it. There's no rhinoceroses around here. And I go, exactly. That's how good I am. I'm a rhinoceros exterminator, and there's no rhinoceroses around because that's how good I am. So, you see, they can't just, and that was a joke, of course, ladies. I'm not a rhinoceros exterminator. But when a group that takes funding to fight racism can't find enough racism to fight to justify the funding given to them, well, they're going to have to create it. So let's give these racist groups some money, stir them up, and then we'll go fight racism and put them on blast because they're now doing racist stuff with the money that we've given them. So now we can go fight the racism that we paid for. I mean, it's a win-win, ladies and gentlemen. The Ku Klux Klan get their share. The SPLC gets their share. Everybody goes away happy. It's a beautiful system, and it works very good. Oy. Yeah, in a Democrat's world, Democrats are famous for that, creating a problem and then coming up with the solutions to fix the problem they created. It's a Democrat strategy. They need to be needed. They need to be wanted. So they have to create problems that only they can fix. It's a Democrat strategy. And here's the sad thing. People have been voting for that nonsense since the 1800s. It's the party of the Ku Klux Klan. The Democrat Party is the party of the Ku Klux Klan. So the SPLC are all left-leaning Democrat people. So this is not strange. They're funding their own people while saying they're fighting against their own people. They're the party of racism. They're the party of Jim Crow. They're the party of Ku Klux Klan. So it's natural. It's natural for them to fund this kind of wickedness, this kind of racism, while pointing the finger at other people and saying they're the racist. When they're acting like the racist, they're doing the racist stuff, funding the racist stuff, and supposedly fighting against the racist stuff that they just paid for. Isn't that weird? I mean, it's weird and yet not weird at the same time. Again, it's the mechanic who owns the mechanic shop. Oh, business is getting a little light. We're going to have to go make more potholes so cars fall apart, so that people bring their cars to us. Or it's like the guy who maybe owns a body shop and he goes out at night and smashes into cars and get them all dented up like a hit and run kind of a thing. And then just waits the next morning because he knows those people are going, hey, I don't know what happened, man. I heard a big crash. I went out there. My car had a big dent in it. Nobody around. So here it is. Here's my insurance. Here's my money. Fix my car. And it was the body shop guy the whole time. Now, I'm not saying that they really do that. I'm just saying, it's like the doctor. Doctor, somebody comes in. I'm not feeling well, doc. Oh my gosh, you have this. Take this pill. Take this pill. and I'll see you in 2 weeks. And then you come back. Oh, I'll see you in another 2 weeks. Take this other pill. I'll see you in another 2 weeks. Take this other pill. And the whole time, it wasn't that big a deal. But you don't know that because you're not a doctor. The doctor keeps you sick so he can pay off his Corvette or whatever he's got. Again, I'm not saying all doctors do that, ladies and gentlemen. I am not saying that at all. But we have heard over the years how even like surgeons and such do these surgeries charging thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to the doctor, to the hospital for surgery that wasn't even needed. Well, why? Because that's all money, ladies and gentlemen. Why would the SPLC do this? It's all money, ladies and gentlemen. They have to prove that they're needed. When there's not enough racism out there, a anti-racist group is not needed, so they have to create some racism. So they paid for it to the tune of $3 million. And who really paid for it? The donors. The very donors that gave to them. Anyways, so ladies and gentlemen, why would you vote Democrat? Knowing that this is their history. This is who they really are. Not just certain Democrat organizations or organizations run by people who happen to be Democrats. The Democrat Party, this is the Democrat Party. We've seen this. They are the party of the Ku Klux Klan. Look it up, ladies and gentlemen. They are the party that lynched blacks and Republicans. They were after Republicans in general, but most of the Republicans that they were lynching were blacks. And that was the Democrat Party. And now they've just shifted their if you will, their slave tactics, their slavery tactics. They can't put people in chains and force them out on the plantation. So what do? They get them hooked to the system, their system. They get them hooked to their system, making them all feel like victims. They lie about the Republicans, which is the anti-slavery party, by the way. They lie about the anti-slavery party and say, we're going to be the ones that take care of you. Because why? You are too silly, too dumb, too weak to do it yourselves. We'll do it for you. Just vote for us and do what we tell you to do. That's the Democrat Party, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to say, it's just the truth. So please look into these things, ladies and gentlemen. Look into all these things. You'll find that I'm right. You will find that I'm right. Anyways, God bless you. Don't vote Democrat. Please don't vote Democrat. That little D next to it, you don't even want to know what the D stands for. We think it stands for Democrat, but it doesn't. God bless you. Have a great day. Let's take this country back. Vote red.
Democrats make me sick.